Look, it's gonna hit us.
At 11:30 in the morning, a mountain the size of a football field came down. Not with warning sirens, not with time to think, in seconds. 15 backcountry skiers were moving through California's Sierra Nevada, making their way out from a remote mountain hut near Castle Peak, just northwest of Lake Tahoe. They were on the last miles of a 3-day trip. They were heading home. Some of them were mothers. Their children were on winter break. Waiting. They never made it. 8 of the 9 skiers reported missing have been confirmed dead. The 9th is still buried somewhere beneath the snowpack near a feature called Perry's Point. Search teams have marked the bodies with avalanche poles just to have a chance of finding them again, because the mountain is still too dangerous, too loaded, too alive with pressure to allow anyone in to bring them down. This is now the deadliest avalanche in the United States in 45 years. And here is what has investigators, forecasters, and an entire mountain community in stunned silence. The warning was not issued after the fact. The warning was already active, loud, and specific, for hours before the first person stepped onto that slope. To understand what happened, you have to go back further than the morning of February 17th. You have to go back to the beginning of winter. California's 2025 to 2026 snow season started weak. Warm temperatures and dry conditions through most of January and into early February left the Sierra Nevada snowpack at only 88% of its seasonal average. That sounds almost normal. It is not. What it means, in the language of avalanche science, is that the mountain spent weeks developing a problem. When snow falls, and then the weather turns warm and dry for extended stretches, the surface of the snowpack goes through a process called temperature gradient metamorphism. The existing snow crystals change shape. They become faceted, weak, sugary. Instead of bonding together into a solid slab, they form a loose, unstable layer called depth Hoar. Imagine stacking bricks on a foundation of ball bearings. That is what the Sierra Nevada had been building all winter, silently, invisibly, beneath every north-facing slope in the region. And then the storm arrived. Beginning the weekend of February 15th, an atmospheric river slammed into the Sierra Nevada with extraordinary force. In the 24 hours before the avalanche, the Soda Springs area recorded 30 inches of new snowfall. At higher elevations, storm totals reached between 3 and 6 feet. In some zones, forecasters documented snowfall approaching 7 feet across the full storm event. That is an enormous load. An enormous load placed in a matter of hours directly on top of a layer that had spent weeks becoming as fragile as glass. Craig Clements, a meteorology professor at San Jose State University who has studied avalanche dynamics for years, described the setup precisely. A week-long snow drought created a hardened, refrozen surface across much of the Sierra. When the storm came, new snow had no time to bond to what was already there. The result, in technical terms, is what forecasters call a persistent slab problem. A massive layer of dense, fresh snow sitting on top of a weak foundation that cannot hold it. Meteorologists have a phrase for this kind of scenario. They call it a house of cards. The Sierra Avalanche Center saw it coming. On Sunday, February 15th, at 6:49 in the morning, the center issued an avalanche alert for the central Sierra Nevada, including the Castle Peak area, warning that large slides were probable in the next 24 to 48 hours. That alert was live when the Blackbird Mountain Guides group arrived at the Frog Lake backcountry huts that same day. They checked in anyway. Blackbird Mountain Guides is not a casual operation. The company, based in Truckee, California, markets itself as one of the most professionally trained guide services in the American West. They offer backcountry ski expeditions, alpine climbing, international mountain adventures. They teach avalanche courses. Their website states that their guides are trained in inclement weather operations and explicitly notes that clients should not expect cancellations due to weather unless the company specifically calls off a trip. The founder of Blackbird, Zeb Blaes, holds qualifications as an International Federation of Mountain Guides Associations certified American mountain guide. He is listed as a member of the American Avalanche Association. Every guide on the February 17th trip held AMGA training or certification in backcountry skiing. Every guide was a certified instructor with the American Institute for Avalanche Research and Education, the industry standard for avalanche education in the United States. These were not careless people. And yet, on Monday, February 16th, one day before the avalanche, Blackbird Mountain Guides published a video to their Instagram account. In it, a company employee stood in the field and described in plain terms what they were observing in the snowpack beneath their feet. He called it atypical layering from their normal mid-season snowpack. He said the result was a particularly weak layer in many northerly aspects, across various elevation bands. The company filmed it. They described it with precision. They published it to the public. The weak layer they were warning their Instagram followers about was the exact same layer their clients would ski across the following morning. Within hours of that video going live, the Sierra Avalanche Center escalated its alert. At 5 in the morning on February 17th, a high-danger avalanche warning went into effect for the entire central Sierra Nevada, including every elevation band, every aspect, every corridor in the Castle Peak area. Not elevated, not advisory. High, the second most dangerous classification on the 5-level scale, one step below extreme. The center's language was unambiguous. Large avalanches were expected to occur Tuesday night, and into at least early Wednesday. Travel in, near, or below avalanche terrain was not recommended. At some point that morning, the group of 15 assembled and began their exit. The route from the Frog Lake Huts to the Castle Peak trailhead near the Boreal ski area runs 3.5 miles through terrain that the Truckee Donner Land Trust, which manages the huts, describes on its own website as passing through numerous avalanche hazards. It is not a corridor. It is a gauntlet. Steve Renaud, an avalanche forecaster with the Sierra Avalanche Center, who was in contact with personnel near the area, described the exit route as involving rugged mountainous terrain where the hazard exists not just from above but from the sides. He used a phrase that has since been quoted in nearly every report. He said an avalanche from above could travel down through treed terrain, often thought of as safe during storms. The trees were not safe. At 8,200 feet elevation, on a north-facing slope directly below Perry's Point, approximately half a mile from the huts they had just left, the slab released. The slide was massive, a football field in length, dense, moving fast. Slab avalanches of this type, once they release, can accelerate to 60 or 70 miles per hour within seconds. They do not look like what people imagine. They do not roll softly down a slope. They shatter. They compress. They create a pressure wave that can knock a person unconscious before the snow even arrives. Someone in the group saw it. They yelled the word. And then, in the words of Rescue Captain Rusty Green of the Nevada County Sheriff's Department, it overtook them rather quickly. Rather quickly. 7 to 10 people were buried in the initial slide. The remaining members of the group scrambled toward a cluster of trees nearby. 6 people reached cover. They had between them one tarp. They built what shelter they could out of branches and whatever materials they were carrying, and they waited. The storm did not stop. Boreal Mountain Resort, sitting at the base of the slopes just miles from the slide, had already shut down its lifts that morning due to heavy snowfall and deteriorating conditions. Interstate 80, which runs along the base of Donner Summit just below the Castle Peak trailhead, had been closed in both directions since early Tuesday due to blizzards, spineouts, and crashes across a stretch from Colfax to the Nevada state line. The 6 survivors sent emergency SOS alerts through their iPhones. That is how authorities first knew they were alive. Not through radio contact, not through a satellite communicator, through the SOS function on their phones. 46 first responders were deployed. Teams came from the Nevada County Sheriff's Search and Rescue, the Placer County Sheriff's Office, Tahoe, Nordic Search and Rescue, the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and Washoe County Search and Rescue, and Truckee Fire, They could not send helicopters. The wind and visibility made it impossible. They could not send snowmobiles directly to the site because the risk of triggering secondary slides was too high. The rescue teams used a tracked vehicle to push as close as possible, then switched to skis, moving carefully, reading every slope above them, knowing that the same conditions that had just killed their targets could collapse again at any moment. They reached the survivors at 5:30 in the evening, 6 hours after the slide. 2 were transported to the hospital. The rest were evaluated and released at the scene. Of the 6 who survived, 5 were clients and 1 was a Blackbird mountain guide. The search for the 9 missing began in earnest the following morning. On Wednesday, February 18th, crews pushed back into the field during a brief break in snowfall. They located 8 of the 9 missing skiers. The bodies were clustered together, not scattered. That detail matters. It suggests the group was moving as a unit when the slab released, that there was no time to separate, no time to run. They were found where the snow stopped them. The 8th body was confirmed by the Nevada County Sheriff, Shannon Moon, at a press conference Wednesday morning. She announced at the same time that the 9th and final missing person was presumed dead. The mission, she told the families, had shifted from rescue to recovery. 7 of the dead are women, 2 are men. Among them are 6 clients and 3 of the 4 Blackbird mountain guides who led the trip. The company that trained these guides to teach avalanche safety lost 3 of its own instructors to an avalanche they had documented on camera the day before it killed them. Now expand outward from the mountain itself and understand who these people were. The group that walked into Castle Peak on Sunday was not a random collection of strangers. It was a community. The clients were drawn heavily from the Bay Area, from the affluent Marin County city of Mill Valley, 180 miles southwest of Donner Summit. Many of them were parents, mostly mothers, of students at Sugar Bowl Academy, a private boarding and day school in Nevada County designed specifically for competitive young skiers. Sugar Bowl Academy issued a statement Wednesday night confirming that multiple members of the school community and others with strong connections to Sugar Bowl, Donner Summit, and the backcountry community died in the slide. The school's director had sent a newsletter to parents just days before the trip, ahead of the winter break. It expressed excitement about the season. It told parents to have a great time, that it was going to be an epic week. The children are on winter break. Their mothers went to the mountain. They are not coming back. And then there is the detail that has affected every law enforcement officer, every rescue worker, every member of the search teams who pushed through that terrain for hours on Tuesday. Placer County Sheriff Wayne Wu confirmed at the Wednesday press conference that one of the 9 missing and presumed dead is the spouse of a member of the Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue Team, one of the agencies deployed to find survivors. That rescuer went into the mountain and searched for their own partner in the snow. There are no words for that. The investigation now centers on a question that has no clean answer. Why did the group leave the huts that morning? The sheriff, Shannon Moon, was direct. She said on camera that authorities are looking at why the group continued the trip 2 days after the first avalanche alert was issued, calling them the decisions the guide company clearly made, and adding that investigators are still in conversation with Blackbird about the factors they considered. The company has asked the public to refrain from speculation and stated that it is too early to draw conclusions. But 3 possible explanations are already circulating in the backcountry community and in investigative circles, and each one reveals something uncomfortable about how human beings make decisions in high-stakes environments. The first possibility is calculated risk acceptance. Experienced guides operating in the Sierra Nevada understand that a high-danger rating does not mean avalanche terrain is impassable. It means it is very dangerous. Professionals sometimes operate in dangerous terrain when they believe they have the skill to read the specific corridor, pick the specific line, and manage the exposure window. It is possible the guides assessed the exit route that morning and believed they could thread through it safely. They had, after all, been monitoring the snowpack for days. They knew exactly what the weak layer looked like. They filmed it. The second possibility is entrapment logic. The group had been inside the Frog Lake hut since Sunday. By Tuesday morning, the storm was producing blizzard conditions. The huts had limited supplies for an extended stay. Staying another day means staying in a position that was itself not without risk, surrounded by terrain that could slide from any direction. In backcountry decision-making, there are situations where movement feels less dangerous than waiting. It is possible the guides weighed the option of sitting inside a hut in a deteriorating storm against the option of pushing through the exit corridor in a controlled group formation, and concluded that movement was the better risk. The third possibility is the one that the mountain community finds most disturbing to contemplate, not because it involves malice, but because it involves human nature. The clients paid for this trip. The cost was $1,795 per person for 3 days. A guided backcountry hut trip in the Sierra Nevada is an experience people plan months in advance. It involves logistics, travel, coordination, anticipation. There is social pressure embedded in that structure. There is professional pressure. There is the weight of not wanting to be the guide who canceled the trip, the company that failed to deliver. Blackbird's own website tells clients not to expect cancellations due to weather unless the company calls it off. That is a statement about identity. It is also a framework that can make it psychologically difficult to be the one who stops. None of these explanations are accusations. 3 of the guides are dead. They walked into the same snow they sent their clients into. Whatever decision was made, it was made together. 8 certified Avalanche instructors walked into snow they knew could kill them. If that doesn't make you want to stick around for what comes next, nothing will. Subscribe. We don't waste your time. But the question does not go away. Here is what the instruments revealed in the hours and days following the slide. Chris Futrier, supervisor of the Tahoe National Forest, which hosts the Sierra Avalanche Center on its Truckee Ranger District, confirmed at the Wednesday press conference that the avalanche was triggered when a persistent weak layer had a large load of snow over the top of it. He then said something that should be understood clearly. That persistent weak layer is still there. It has reloaded with another 3 feet of snow. The hazard remains high. The mountain did not end when the slide stopped. The bodies of 8 people remain on the mountain as of February 19th. 3 to 5 more feet of snowfall are expected across the Sierra in the coming days. Authorities have placed avalanche poles in the snow to mark the locations of the bodies so that search teams can find them again when conditions improve. The 9th victim has not been located. The snow that buried them continues to deepen. Castle Peak is a 9,110-foot peak in the Donner Summit area of the Sierra Nevada. It has been the site of 2 fatal avalanche events in the span of 6 weeks. In January, a snowmobiler was buried and killed near the same terrain. Now, 9 skiers. In the 40-year period during which the National Avalanche Center has tracked avalanche deaths in the United States, only one event has been deadliest than this one. That was 1981, on Mount Rainier in Washington, where 11 climbers died. Before that, the deadliest avalanche in California's modern history was the 1982 Alpine Meadows ski resort disaster, also near Lake Tahoe, which killed 7. Castle Peak, February 2026, has now surpassed both of them. The broader question, the one that extends beyond this specific tragedy, is about the structure of the backcountry itself. Unlike ski resorts, which are required to maintain avalanche control programs using explosives, artillery, and controlled detonations to manage the snowpack before it becomes life-threatening, the backcountry has no such infrastructure. Castle Peak has no avalanche mitigation, no ski patrol, no nets, no explosive control lines. It is terrain as nature builds it, and conditions as the atmosphere creates them. Anyone who enters it does so with whatever knowledge and equipment they carry themselves. The risk exposure, as forecasters noted, is about as high as it can get in this part of the world. Blackbird Mountain Guides advertises itself as a company that teaches people how to survive in exactly this kind of environment. The guides who died were Avalanche instructors. The clients who paid to go with them trusted that expertise completely. And yet the mountain did not care about certifications. Nevada County Sheriff Shannon Moon said it plainly at the podium on Wednesday. Mother Nature doesn't seem to matter, no matter how prepared you are, no matter how experienced you are. Placer County Sheriff Wayne Wu issued a separate and direct warning to the public. Avoid the Sierras during this current storm and in the upcoming days. Avoid mountain travel. It's treacherous. Avoid the backcountry. Those warnings are now being heard by an audience that 48 hours ago had no reason to think the backcountry near Lake Tahoe would be making national headlines. Tonight, 9 people who left for a luxury mountain adventure on a Sunday are never coming home. 8 of their bodies remain on the slope that took them. 1 is still somewhere beneath the surface. Their families have been told that the mission is no longer a rescue. The weak layer identified in that Instagram video is still there. The new snow is still falling. The weight on the mountain is still building. And the question that investigators, lawyers, legislators, and an entire industry will be asking for months to come is the same question the mountain itself already answered. Was this survivable? And if it was, why didn't anyone stop? That question has no clean answer. Drop your theory in the comments. And if this story hit different, you know what to do with that like button.